Kalkadosh Boker Or, Bekiim Bahalacha, day 19. This is Bekiim Bahalacha 6, day 19, page 55. This is the introduction. This is the Siman Kuf Nunchet 158 of Netillat Yadayim and washing hands for bread. We are going to start on Halacha Aleph. Keshiyavo le'echol pat shemevarchim alav hamotzi. So when we're going to have somebody that's coming and he wants to make hamotzi on bread, Yitol Yadav is going to do Netilat Yadayim afilu enu yodeh la shum tumah. Meaning, even if your hands are not tameh or whatever it is, you're still going to do the bracha of Netilat Yadayim and Netilat Yadayim. You're going to make the bracha of Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher geshalom mitzvah v'tzivanu al Netilat Yadayim. Okay, so just in English, may you, Hashem our Master, King of the universe, right, be blessed, for He sanctified us through His commandments and has commanded us concerning the washing of the hands. Ve'af ha'ochel belo shiga bepat biyadav. Even if you're not going to touch the bread with your hands, you're still chayav in Netilat Yadayim, and we're going to explain it in Siman Kuf Samech Gimel, Halacha Aleph and Halacha Yud Gimel. So which means that even if you're not going to actually touch the bread, you still have to do Netilat Yadayim. Okay, fine. Shiur Pat Amechayev Netilah, which means this: I'm going to eat any amount of bread. I have to do Netilat Yadayim on any amount of bread, right? Let's say I'm going to Kamamash, I can have a crumb. I have to do Netilat Yadayim, or I'm going to have a little piece, less than a kazayit, or what is the measurement for Netilat Yadayim? So says Halacha Bet, En chiyuv Netilat Yadayim, right? Leseuda elaim ochel shiur kazayit. So for you to do Netilat Yadayim, you need a kazayit. So if you're going to eat less than a kazayit of bread, there is no Netilat Yadayim. Aval bepachot mikazayit mikaradin, you're not going to be chayav litol yadav. Okay, this is based upon the Shulchan Aruch Mefurash. Here in the footnote, he says, what does it mean eating less than a kazayit? Maran writes in the Shulchan Aruch 158.3, so Siv Gimel, that some poskim rule that if someone is going to eat less than a kazayit of bread, he's exempt of washing hands. This is a reference to the rokeach brought down in the Bet Yosef. Several lacharonim concurred with this ruling of Maran. They actually held like Maran. The Shirei Knesset Gedolah, however, interpreted the words of the Shulchan Aruch. Some poskim ruled, right? Because Maran says some poskim ruled like this. So he says to mean that he's undecided about the halacha. But other achronim concur with this also, and they said that one should do Netilat Yadayim just without a bracha. The Mishnah Berurah and the Kaf HaChaim Sofer, right? They both ruled that it is more correct to be stringent on the matter to do Netilat Yadayim without a bracha. Maran and the Rishon LeZion overruled that there's no obligation whatsoever to do Netilat Yadayim. Apparently, he understood Maran obviously with the Rokeach, which was the first shita, which basically that's it. You don't have to do Netilat Yadayim at all. Yalkut Yosef ruled that the halacha exempts one from washing his hands in this case, but he added that the Kaf HaChaim recommended it as a piety, meaning that it's a it's a nice chumrah to do. Okay, the Halacha Berurah also ruled that technically there's no obligation to do it. He brings a proof from also the Rashbetz brought down by the Rav Chida, and also that's the opinion of the Eshkol, right? That you're completely exempt unless you eat a kabetza of bread. Okay, fine. So that was the first one. So if it's going to be less than a kazayit, there's no hayuv of Netilat Yadayim for seuda. Next halacha. Ve'af she'ochel shiur kazayit. Now, even if it's going to be that you plan to eat a kazayit of bread, okay, im eno ochel shiur kabetza, if you do not want to eat a kabetza. Nowadays, we usually say that a kazayit is going to be around, let's say, 28.8, 28 grams, let's say. And the kabetza is going to be, here it says it's like 50 grams. Usually we say it's around 54, right? Or 56. But remember, kabetza is a double than a kazayit. So, eno emevarech al netilat yadayim. You're not going to make netilat yadayim with a bracha, b'shem malchut. Meaning, you would have to do netilat yadayim, that's a washing of the hands, but without a bracha. So he says, nimtzat, so it comes out, שרק באופן שדתו לאכול 50 gram pat, only if you wanted to eat the 54 or whatever it is amount of the grams, right? You're allowed to do al netilat yadayim b'shem malchut, right? That's the only time that you're going to do it. וכשאוכל שיעור kabetza, so now when you are going to eat a shiur of kabetza, ישו לאכול כל כזית בשיעור כדי אכילה פרס. So you have to eat the kazayit in a shiur of כדי אכילה פרס, which is around 6-7 minutes. That means basically, it's not just enough that you have to eat the kabetza. You have to eat the kabetza within the shiur of achilat pras, which means within the 6-7 minutes. וגם לא ישהה בין הכזיתות. You cannot wait between the kezitot more than a shiur כדי achilat pras. Look on page 56 on the bottom. We're going to speak about it. So one more time, right? A sikum of what we did today. If right now you're obligated to do netilat yadayim in a motzi, right? If you're going to eat bread, now this is not even if you're not going to be touching the bread, you still have to do Netillat Yadayim and hamotzi. What is the shi'ur of the bread which is mechayev netilah? If it's going to be less than a kazayit, so meikaradin you don't have to eat, you don't have to do Netillat Yadayim at all. Meaning, if you're going to eat less than a kazayit of bread, meikaradin you don't have to do Netillat Yadayim at all. You still have to do hamotzi, because remember, hamotzi is always an obligation. Because hamotzi, even if you're going to eat a crumb, you're obligated to make the bracha v'motzi lechiminaretz. But we're talking about Netilat Yadayim. So less than a kazayit, meikaradin, there's not even Netilat Yadayim. If you want, you can. It's pious to do it, but there's no obligation. If it's more than a kazayit, less than a kabetza, Netilat Yadayim is an obligation, but without a bracha. And if it's more than kabetza, that's when you're going to make the Netilat Yadayim with Shem u'malchut. Okay, now, even with that, you have to make sure that you're going to eat it within the 6 or 7 minutes. So let's see right here. Eating more than 18 grams, but less than 27 grams of bread. Page 56 on the bottom. If you remember, we brought down that it's going to be a kazayit. How much is a kazayit? So we usually go, the kazayit is around 28 grams. But there is shitat Rambam that it's less than that. So let's see what happens. Some Rishonim, they rule that a kazayit equals 1/3 of a kabetza. Meaning, we usually say that a kazayit is half of a kabetza. So if kabetza is going to be 54 or 56 grams, whatever it is, so therefore 27, 28 grams, that's a kazayit. So it's half, right? The volume of, right? Some Rishonim, but other Rishonim, they say that it's going to be 1/3 of a kabetza. So if you do 1/3 of a kabetza, now it becomes 18. So the volume of 18 grams of bread. And others rule, no, that it's half, which is going to be the 27, 28. So accordingly, someone who plans to eat a volume between the 18 grams, right, according to some shitot, that's already a kazayit, right? That's what we usually use. We use this shita many times on Pesach, when a person is sick, for the elderly or people that are sick. So many times we'll use the 18 grams of a kazayit to be lenient that they were Yitzhak Chovah, eating matzah on Pesach with eating 18 grams, right, of matzah, right? We don't come and obligate them to eat the 27, 28 grams if they're very elderly and they can't eat. So we do use the shita of the Rambam, right, for kazayit. So he says, one second. So he says, since some poskim ruled that one must wash their hands even when eating less than a kazayit, so now there's a doubt. What about this case now? Perhaps he is required to wash his hands even when planning to eat less than a kazayit, okay? And then he says, and even if not, maybe 18 grams is already a kazayit. So that's the question. So you've got like a kilo asfek sveka lechumra. Maybe even less than a kazayit, you're obligated to wash your hands. And even you're going to tell me, right, you're not obligated to wash your hands, maybe 18 grams is already a kazayit. Nevertheless, the Chalabra countered that there's a compound doubt to argue that he's exempt from washing the hands in this case. Perhaps Salacha follows the opinion that one is exempt from washing hands less than a kazayit. And even if one is obligated to wash his hands, right, even if it's going to be less than a kabetza, the 18 grams that he's planning to eat now, right, is not really a kazayit. Since this mitzvah is only a drabanan, so therefore we could be lenient. It is best, however, to wash his hands in this case, right? Even though technically you're exempt to do so. So it's keilu, you want to do a sfek sveka lechumra, I could do a sfek sveka lekula. But he's just saying it's the Rabbanan. Once it's the Rabbanan, but all these halachot are the Rabbanan, so therefore you could be lenient. If you want to, whatever, you have it. You understand? Footnote number 3. When planning to eat more than a kazayit of bread, but less than a kabetza. So what happens if lechatchila I want to eat more than a kazayit, less than a kabetza? Let's say Seudah Shlishit. I ask you, you're going to have a kabetza? No, Rabbi, I'm only going to do kazayit for the Birkat Hamazon. So I'm going to do the kazayit. In kazayit, you're going to be the chovah of the Seudah Shlishit. The thing is Netillat Yadayim without bracha. So Maran the Bet Yosef quotes the Rokeach ruling that if someone plans to eat less than a kabetza, more than a kazayit, he has to wash his hands but must not say the bracha, since there is some doubt whether or not he's obligated. So Maran explained that there's reason to say that there's no obligation at all to wash the hands when planning to eat less than a kabetza. Such an amount of bread is incapable of contracting tumah from any source. On the other hand, it may be that our sages obligated us to wash our hands whenever eating bread. And whenever someone eats less, at least a kazayit, it's considered eating. Therefore, in practice, we wash our hands, but without a bracha. And that's the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch. So that's what we paskin. Right? That's what we said, right? We do washing the hands without bracha. Almost all the Achronim agree with the Shulchan Aruch, including the Taz, the Mishnah Berurah, the Ben Ish Chai, the Shut Matei Yosef. The Shut Matei Yosef, however, he disagreed. And he said that it's not necessary to wash at all if you're going to eat less than a kabetza, and this is the opinion of the Eshkol. Nevertheless, we go like the Shulchan Aruch, so there's nothing more to talk about. What is a kabetza? So Ben Ish Chai ruled that one must not make a bracha Netillat Yadayim unless you eat at least the 54 grams of bread, which is 18 dirham. This means that the amount equal of an egg, including its shell. So it's the egg with the shell, not you don't peel the egg, and it's the egg with the shell. Okay, the Rishon LeZion took issue with this ruling since Maran in the Bet Yosef explained that the reason that the delegation applies is only when eating a kabetza is because lesser volume cannot contract tumah from any other source. Since this is so, the Rambam ruled that the volume of a food equal to an egg without the shell contracts tumah, not with the shell. So basically, the Rishon LeZion, right, the Rav Ovadia is going against the Ben Ish Chai. He says, why do you need the shell? Even without the shell, it's going to be a problem. So he says the volume of bread equaling with that of a shell, the egg without the shell should be enough. This is the ruling, in fact, of the Dagum Merva, the Mishnah Berurah Kav Chaim Sofer, and the Or LeZion. So the volume of an egg without a shell has a mass of 16.8 dirham, which is going to be, according to Rav Chaim Naya, around, let's say, 51 grams. So that's why there's a machloket, whether it's going to be between 51 or 55, 56, whatever it is. That's where it's going to become, the machloket, whether it's with the shell or without the shell. If you say it's with the shell, so it could be even 54 grams or 55 grams, whatever it is. With the kabetza, it goes anywhere between, that we're learning now, anywhere between 50 and 56.
This is
right?
Just to counter the comment of the last.
The Ben Ish Chai. The Ben Ish Chai says that.
No.
No. You have to wash your hands for a kabetza. How much is a kabetza? So according to the Ben Ish Chai, 56 grams, 54 grams. Why? It's an egg with the shell. Rav Ovadia argues, and he says it's an egg without the shell. So according to that, it comes out that it's not going to be 54, 56 grams. It's going to be 50 grams, 51 grams, whatever it is. So now he comes and he says, okay, so it's around 51 grams. So how much time do you eat the kabetza? Right? Because one more time, you've got the kabetza or the kazayit, and now how much do I need to eat? Right? In what time frame? So you said in one shot. It's very difficult. Nobody ever told you one shot. Right? Nobody spoke about one shot. So he says how much time? So the Rishon LeZion wrote that in order to justify the reciting the Beracha of Netillat Yadayim, okay, you have a time of kedei achila pras. How much is kedei achila pras? 7.5 minutes. He cited this rule from the Shulchan Aruch, from the prayer book, from the Sidur of Rabbeinu Zalman, and he praised it as sufficiently correct. Okay, look also in the Yalkut Yosef in the English edition. In the Yalkut Yosef of Yamim Noraim, right, several opinions regarding this are cited. So there's many different opinions, not just one opinion of 7.5. There's many different opinions. Okay, and then he says the response, as Shraga Meir pointed out, that it is not necessary to eat the second kazayit immediately after eating the first one, but this is that it is best not to pause along as kedei achila pras between each kazayit. Meaning like this: you have to eat 2 kazetim, plus 2 kazetim is 1 kabetza. So now, 1 kazayit betoch kedei achila pras. I don't have to eat the kabetza betoch kedei achila pras, meaning I don't have to eat 51 grams, 54 or whatever it is in 7 minutes. I've got 2 each kazayit. So when it says that I'm going to eat a kazayit b'toch kedei achila pras, 27 grams of bread in 7 minutes, it's more than enough. You understand? So now the question is, okay, fine, but you need to do 2. So okay, so I'm going. Do I have to do it back to back? So I start my first 7 minutes. I eat a kazayit. I have now my second 7 minutes, and now I have the second kazayit. Says over here, no, you don't need to do that. What you need to do though is that I cannot make a pasek, a hefsek of more than kedei achila pras between each 2. So one more time, I've got 7 minutes or 7.5 minutes, whatever it is, kazayit. I eat my 1 kazayit. Then what happens is that I'm going to come and I'm going to say, okay, fine, now I've got another 7.5 minutes. Those 7.5 minutes start whenever I want. But whenever I want, I have to eat a kazayit within the 7.5 minutes. But it should not pass 7.5 minutes between, right, the pasek between the first one and the second one. So I could have 7.5 minutes, 4 minutes, and then 7.5 minutes. I could have 7.5 minutes, 2 minutes, or 7 minutes, but I cannot have, let's say, 10 minutes. And then I'm going to eat the next kazayit b'toch kedei achila pras. So I have to eat the 2 kazatim, each kazayit within the 7.5 minutes, and there shouldn't be a pasek in between of more than 7.5 minutes. So the Rishon LeZion ruled that it is not necessary to eat the entire volume of kabetza once, but you must not interrupt more than this time span of kedei achila pras between eating each kazayit. Apparently, if someone knows, right, that he will interrupt for longer than this, he must not say the beracha of Netillat Yadayim, because at the end of the day, he's not doing it. So therefore, obviously, in such a case, he will not make the beracha al Netillat Yadayim, because again, he's not eating a kabetza of bread.